It's episode 21 of the Improv London podcast with this week's guest, Maria Peters.
This ain't gonna be easy.
Somebody moving around.
Welcome to episode 21. And I just want to take a moment to, and I know this is kind of cheesy, but just because things are cheesy doesn't mean they're not true. Thanks to everyone that's been listening so far to this episode and to previous episodes. When I thought about creating this podcast, the important part of it for me was having the conversations with people. But as the weeks have gone by, the amount of listeners has become increasingly important to me, and I think it's just amazing that we've got some episodes. When we've got episodes where we've got over 200 listens. At the moment, we've got Steve Rowe on 228, and we've got Chris Mead on 232, and we've got Katie Shute at 219. So, wow, just thank you very much, and do tell your friends if you think you'll enjoy them. Anyway, Maria, she was brilliant, as I expected she would be. We had a great time talking about her being a DJ on a breakfast show, and her work with Lauren Shearing as part of Breaking Entering, and I particularly enjoyed Maria's approach to accents. And we also talked about The Playground, a regular night which is doing great things for the Improv London community. Do enjoy. I was hoping that they were going to supply these in the plastic cups, and then I could ask them to write Improv on one and London on the other, and I could take a picture and it would be... Anyway.
Oh, and then they failed us.
But actually, I prefer a proper mug.
Too bad.
There were so many options. I
saw you look baffled at one point.
I thought if Maria doesn't want milk, she'll probably have thought to mention that beforehand.
No, you're right. Perfect. Should I get a little somewhere to put them?
That would be fab, thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Oh, not on there.
You can tell you've got experience of the audio recording world from the fact that we don't put them the cup with the tea bags directly in front of the microphone.
I used to work in radio.
You did used to work in radio?
Yeah.
I was reading about this on the train on the way here. You used to have a breakfast show.
I did.
Tell me about your breakfast show. I would totally listen
Have
to
we
that.
started? Is this...
I don't know, let's see. If we've got any gold who's started. If we haven't.
My breakfast show, I was 20 years old, and in New Zealand, and it was quite a small town in New Zealand, and it was called Classic Hits.
Classic Hits, nice.
Yeah, and so it's quite, I guess you'd say the New Zealand equivalent of Magic.
Right.
Or Heart.
Nice.
And so the thing that I remember the most is that I didn't choose who my radio partner was. So I just got put with this guy, and we just didn't really click.
Oh no!
And so the whole thing was just pretending that we got on every morning from 6 till 10. So I didn't stay in it very long, but I was like, oh, do I have to spend the rest of my life getting up early, and B, pretending that this is the greatest thing when really I want to throttle him. So yeah, it was short-lived. It was thanks. It was only about a year and a half of radio, and then I came over to England, to London.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Had you always wanted to get into radio? Or?
Yeah, I was trying to decide, interestingly, between teaching or radio. For some reason, those were my two options out of school that I gave myself.
Yeah.
And I did a gap year over here teaching as an assistant teacher, and I was like, oh, it's too formal for my kind of style. So maybe radio is the way forward. So I went back and studied in radio, and then got a job straight out, but then didn't really enjoy it. I thought, oh no, what to do? Come to London. And so I came back to London.
So were there any regular spots on the breakfast show? Did you have any games that you played?
Oh my God, yes. You know what? Also, can I just say that I played games on the day that 9/11 happened.
Right.
Because I didn't know what to do because I was so young. I was like, should we change our whole program or should we try and keep having fun? And so I kept having fun, which is one of my biggest why did I do that?
Because otherwise the terrorists would have won.
Oh my goodness, Stu, that's why. Oh, I've won then. That's great.
In a war against the Tina terrorists, and Maria Peters, DJ on New Zealand's equivalent. What was it?
Classic hits.
Classic hits.
Yeah, hits of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today.
You've still got it.
Oh my God.
You've still got it.
So this awful game that I played, which is called Hole in the Headline, which was there would be a head. Right, this is when the internet first started, right? So I had to go, I think it was Yahoo, find a headline from around the world. I'd take out a word, and then people would call in.
Yeah.
Or I think we're doing text. That stage, I think we're doing text and the odd email of what they thought the word was. Like, this was before anyone had Google on the old times, so they could just Google it. And so it would be like, I don't know, man runs into bedroom to find what with his dog or something. And then people would suggest what it was. That was one of my favourite games.
And the fact that sometimes, they got it wrong and they came up with a hilarious alternative.
That's it. Sometimes the real story was the most hilarious.
Yes, sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes it was just sad. But yeah, because I did do it a little bit solo for a time as well before I had this guy, Nicholas. God, I don't remember his last name.
Very best not to say.
Yeah, he knows who he is.
He knows who he is. And
he knows we didn't get on.
He'll be hurt. He knew you could go, because that'd be awful. He thought you had this really kind of good.
He was like, what?
Relationship going, and it's like actually you hated him all the time, and he found out by this podcast.
Exactly.
How gutting would that be?
He's in New Zealand somewhere, probably on radio still. But yeah, I forgot what I was saying, but something I did that.
Games that you played on the radio when you were in the breakfast show.
Well, yeah, what I did realise is that it was a lot of improv, and you know what? I think that's why I didn't like him, because he used to block everything. So I'd be like, hey, Nicholas, why don't we look at, I don't know, Tina Turner's back catalogue or something. I mean, honestly, my offers were better than that, but I'd say something like that, and he'd be like, no, I think what we'll look at is Britney Spears or whatever, and I would be like, okay. So that's why it never gelled, I think, as a team, looking back now. Yeah. That's why we didn't work, because we weren't improvising properly, and that's all radio is, really.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's,
cool.
That's my radio background.
That's your radio background. That's great, yes. Because I did a little bit of research on the train here. I don't do.
Great, thorough. I like it.
Thorough, yes.
Yeah.
With a passion. Who is this describing?
Uh-oh.
With a passion for entertainment, creativity, and a real talent for engaging audiences with any content given to her. There's never a dull moment when she's in the room.
Oh my God.
Maria Peters, welcome to the podcast.
What an intro. Where did that come from? Oh, no, that's my work profile. Yeah, they're making me interesting at work. I do training, corporate training as well as improv training. So that's why I'm sounding kooky and wacky. Like, if I'm training in presentation skills or, communications or negotiation or something, that's how they sell me, apparently.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned coming to London.
Yes. I came to London in 2002, and I planned to stay for 2 years, and then...
Let me check the map for that.
It don't quite add up. I know. I fell in love with London, and weirdly, actually only discovered improv 2007 or 8. I think it's 2008. I discovered it. So fell in love with London even before improv. But yeah, and never made it back to New Zealand. It's okay. I am here legally.
That would be awful if the appropriate government department was listening to the podcast and hang on a minute, we haven't got her.
Damn it! Foiled. Yeah, no, I'm okay to be here, but yeah, I'm 14 years later, loving this town.
Brilliant. That's what we love to hear.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm from New Zealand, obviously, originally, and my accent's very weird, and that people in New Zealand are like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, here. People in England are like, yeah, that's an interesting accent, where are you from? So I'm home nowhere now. I am halfway between England and New Zealand, in the Atlantic, I guess, somewhere, this accent. It's an odd one.
So you were teaching a class today?
Yes.
What class were you teaching today?
I was just teaching Game of the Scene.
Oh, right.
Which was a Saturday one-off advanced kind of workshop, and all about finding the funny in the scene.
Brilliant, because I'd like to know how to do that. Please.
Would you?
That would be brilliant. If you just tell me now.
Well,
I haven't gone to the class, but if you could just tell me for a pint of tea.
Sure. We have got pints of tea. For those of you who can't see, obviously everyone.
Hey, if you come on this podcast, I'm going to get you a big cup of tea. It's no ordinary cup of tea.
Yeah.
You don't have to drink all of that, because that's sort of a week's worth, isn't it?
Like, they gave us 2 tea bags. That's how big this mug of tea is. Which is good. It'll last.
Go large or go home.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do need to go to the toilet, then that's also... I'll probably edit that bit out.
Oh, okay. I mean... or we could keep it as... Anyway. Yes, game of the scene. So...
What's the game of the scene in your mind?
Well, I always start by telling the students... this is a particular style of improvisation, and it's not the only way to find funny things in the scene. And I think it relaxes people a bit, because it can take a little while to get your head around it. And it's one of the key things in improv where people get frustrated or think that they're shit. Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. It's been worse.
Think that they're shit because they can't work it out. Like, they understand the theory, but they can't quite put it into practice as soon as you can sometimes other skills. I talk about UCB and how a lot of the game of the scene stuff comes from them because they're in New York and they had to get to the funny quite quickly because New York audiences are a lot like, but be funny, because that's why we're here.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Chicago, because with UCB, of course, the UCB4 came from Chicago and then went to New York. But Chicago traditionally is a bit slower burning with their improv, and the audience are traditionally more patient. So that tends to be the difference in styles. So with this game of the scene, it's about... I heard Will Hines say it once on a podcast, which I think really defines how they work, is that you improvise for the first bit of the scene. So you're doing your standard yes-anding, you're finding out where you are, who you are. Then something unusual happens, or something interesting, and then from there on you kind of become sketch writers on the spot, in that you're not necessarily yes-anding anymore. You're just agreeing that this is what the funny thing is, and how can we engineer stuff so that you can do more of that funny thing. And so that's where I think people who are traditional, like purists in improv, don't like game of the scene, because it can feel a bit... it's kind of, there's right and wrong, whereas sometimes in improv people are like, there is no wrong response because I'm improvising, but with game of the scene there kind of is a better choice to make, because you're trying to get to the funny thing as the outcome. So I always start my classes by saying, don't worry if you don't get this. Don't worry if you feel frustrated, because it took me like a year and a half to even be like, oh, I think I get it now.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, just to the point where you can look at a scene and go, that's the funny thing, do more of that. Takes a long time. But the great thing is that it's always hilarious, because that's the point of each scene. So you're getting rid of any extraneous stuff and just going for the funny. Often at the expense of the reality sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, I think sometimes people worry that they have to give truthful responses, which you do have to do at the start.
Yes.
But towards the end of the scene, when you're sketch writing, you can go into absurd because you've already established that platform.
Right, okay.
So it can get crazy, but it's hilarious, and that's all that matters, because that's all you're going for every time. Yeah, it's great. It's a great workshop to teach.
Cool. And so, are you switching modes from? So when you say you go into sketch writing mode, is that a different way of thinking from an improvising mode?
I think so. I think like the people in the troupe or in the scene agree that they're going to go for gamey scenes, because there's nothing worse than different people in a scene trying to go for different things. Yeah. One person's like, oh, we're getting divorced, so I'm genuinely going to be upset. And the other person's like, yeah, and I've got an elephant. Da, 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 da. And you're like, oh, God, there's not really hitting the mark, either of you. So I'd say, like, if you're agreeing that you want to be a sketch-type troupe that improvises, then you improvise to start, to find out who you are and where you are and stuff. Sometimes people can come in with an idea, a stronger idea, but there's a point in the scene where you both have to agree what path you're going on together. Like, you're going to be the guy who always falls over when I mention the word train or something. Because we've established a little bit of a pattern, so let's keep playing that game.
Right, yes.
And so that's going to be the game. Because in any improv world, you might just stop doing that in a normal scene, and you might just start doing something else because you feel like the emotion should take over. But in a game scene, you're sticking to the game. Like, you're both kind of lean and efficient, and we're going for that funny, and we're doing the train thing and you falling over, and we're just, however we can play that, then, yeah, to get the laughs.
Right, yes. Yes.
It's a great example. Whenever I say train, you fall over. I mean, the classic game of the scene.
I mean, I see that a lot on the improv scene, and I mean, I love it every time I see it. So, you know, let's hope we have many more.
That's what we were doing today, actually. We started off by looking at how simple a game can be, in that, there's some really great scenes today, just with like someone coughing and someone getting annoyed at them coughing. And that's, you know, and then they cough louder, and then they get more annoyed until the end when they, you know, explode in whatever sense. And the game can be that simple. It doesn't have to be, you know, some really heady premise. It can be just, what's funny, let's do more of that. Yeah.
No, that sounds really cool. So, you mentioned how in New York they had to get to the funny really quickly, and in Chicago audiences are actually a little bit more patient, which helps me really understand the different styles of the two schools. So, what would your default? I'm sure you can do many different styles. What's your default style? If we were going to sometimes ask when people teach students, and then other people teach those students, they can then see that they've been taught by that person. I've not found out a quick way of asking this question, but if people could tell that they've been taught by you, how would they be able to tell? And how does that relate to your style?
What do my improv children look like?
Yes.
Got it.
That's better. I'm going to say that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to use that more often.
Assuming that I have given birth by myself. Okay, so with the caveat, I obviously like to produce well-rounded children, and they can follow their dreams and go to university or not. It's up to them. But if there's one thing I like to make sure that every student child has, is actually the opposite to the game of the scene. I know it's weird because I've just been banging on about it. I do love both ends of the spectrum, but the other end, which is where my heart is, which is the IO style, IO in Chicago, is where I totally fell in love with this, and I guess it's my default, which is going for relationship, going for reality, and the laughs through recognition, rather than the laughs through that was a funny bit of wordplay or clowning or whatever. So I always try to instill in students that to be brave, to go for those times in the scene where there aren't laughs, where you do just have real honest conversations, and then knowing that the funny can still come. It doesn't mean that they have to be dramatic scenes about people having cancer and dying, but it's more about if you play the truth, well, it's truth and comedy, isn't it? So especially when I'm working with people in long-form class, I always try to get that in there. And sometimes I do a one-off class called Real Talk, which is about taking away all those layers of the character that we might hide behind, and actually saying, what would you say? What would Maria do if someone came up to me and said, you know what, you're really ugly, or something like that? Then I would be really hurt, rather than coming back with the clever quip of, well, your mum said, So playing that moment of your best friend's just insulted you and said for the first time that they think that you're ugly. And then I love that tension that you can build and then shatter with humour in other ways. So hopefully my students have a bit of that in it. in them, because I feel like that's where I like to go to. And me and Lauren, Lauren Shearing, who's my duo partner, we did the IO 5-week intensive a couple of years ago. And we both, wonderfully, while we were there, fell in love with that style. So then when we came back, we both were totally on the same page about what the truth in the scenes and how to go for that. TJ and Dave, have you heard of them? Yeah, of course you have. And then there's another...
No, I haven't. Tell me about TJ
I'm
and
sorry,
Dave.
Stuart.
No, because I'm playing... Obviously, I haven't heard of them.
Yeah.
But maybe people listening
Okay.
haven't heard of TJ and Dave. So
Sure.
what's your TJ and Dave take?
This is the TJ and Dave takeaway. Well, this might be controversial, but they are one of my two favourite duos in the world. I think there's another duo which I enjoy watching better. I know your face, if anyone could see your face right now.
It's a good job it's an audio format, frankly.
So TJ and Dave are widely sort of thought of as the best improv duo in the world. Because they've been going for so long, but just they do that style where they act as well as get the funny, and often acting is thrown a bit by the wayside, I think, with comedy sketches, and that people just end up being themselves or being a bit goofy. But every TJ and Dave show I've seen, I think I've seen about, 4 or 5, you believe every character. You forget that it's a TJ and Dave show. You forget that you're watching improv. Their object work is incredible. Their characters are so nuanced. Like, they don't do big, huge accents. They just do... they switch into each other's characters, and you forget who originally played the character because they're just so... Have you seen them?
I have not seen them live. I've watched them on video and I've read their book, which is very good.
Yeah.
It's one of those books where I thought, I'm underlining that, and that, and that.
Yeah.
Let's just underline all of it.
That's what I did with Truth and Comedy.
Oh, right, yeah.
I was reading it and I was like, I should put an asterisk here for coming back to it. And then by the end, the whole book was just listed with that. And this is useful. But the other duo I love, and they are quite inspiring to Lauren and I, are a duo called Dummy.
Right, yes.
Have you heard of... Yeah, so they are Colleen and... Jason Schott's Colleen Doyle, also from Chicago, and they are also inspired by TJ and Dave. But again, very similar style, in that they play scenes, they take their time, they're very patient. They came over here and they did some shows, and I wish I could define why I like them a little bit more. It might just be because of the male-female dynamic, and that feels like they've got more options to play. I don't know, but they are incredible as well. So I would put them in the same category as TJ and Dave. If you ever get a chance to see Dummy, do it.
Cool. Yeah, so let's talk about breaking and entering.
Okay.
So how did you and Lauren meet? And then how did you decide... Or did you decide to form a group and then you met? Who knows? It's a modern world. I can't think it could be happening.
I met Lauren by accident, always, in that she came to see an improv show of mine, but a mutual friend of ours brought her along, and it was a fairly terrible one. It was early days, and then after the show, this is Sarah. Sarah was like, "Oh, this is my friend Lauren I brought along," and we just hung out for about 2 or 3 hours. Had a drink afterwards, and I was like, "This girl Lauren is hilarious. She's making me laugh a lot." Just some people that you click with,
yes.
And so we just kept in touch from there. She was doing stand-up for a little bit, and then started doing improv, and then I think we were both at a night in Stockwell. Maybe it was a Duck Duck Goose, something like that, where, it's like the audience is mainly improvisers. There's a jam, and so anyone can jump up.
That's Duck Duck Goose, which improv journeyman Mark Tyndall is involved in, I believe. A man with a military history, according to you. Can we just explain your military history of Mark Tyndall?
You mentioned something. You mentioned something about putting your back to the wall if your military training says so or something, and then I said, "Is there an improviser with any military background?" And then I said, "Maybe Mark Tyndall," but I might be making that up.
I mean, I know he worked. He used to work for a military museum.
That might be where I've got the idea that he was in the army.
I mean, he might have
storming
been.
the beaches of Kazakhstan, and you're like, no, he just gives out tour guides. But anyway.
So Mark, do get in touch if you did have a military story, or if anybody else that's listening does.
Who knows? Maybe it's just the three of us. You, me, and Mark. So yes, at that night, I think Mark was there. I'm sure he was.
With his back to the wall in case of an attack.
Always ready if you've been trained in the military like Mark has. There were people just sort of jumping up and like, oh, we've got another slot for 5 minutes if anyone wants to have a go. And I kind of looked over at Lauren, and Lauren looked at me and was like, shall we? Yeah, let's put our name down. And so we just did a duo for the first time. I think, oh God, I've skipped out a whole bit. Lauren will be annoyed, I'm sure. We were in Music Box at the time together as well. Right. So we had been playing before that whole Duck Duck Goose Night. But that was the very first time we played as a duo.
Yes.
So, yeah, and then we realised it was super fun. And that we should try and do more of it. And it kind of, got bigger and bigger.
So was there a plan for the sort of thing you were going to do? Or did you just think, hey, we make fun together?
We make fun. That is our tagline, actually. It's breaking and entering, semicolon, we make fun. Yes, we loved TJ and Dave, and we both loved Dummy, and so again, luckily, we knew that we were going for that kind of style of relationship, of wanting the audience to care about the characters, of it being funny, but also we want the audience to gasp, or we want the audience to really be rooting for people to get together if they've broken up or whatever. As well as the laughs, because over 45 minutes it just feels like more of a wholesome meal than just sort of quick fire sketches or whatever. So yeah, we both planned to do that style, and we have a monthly night at the Miller. Always forgot the name of that. And we've done loads of festivals. We went to Dublin, which was lovely.
What did you do in Dublin?
We did a show. It's just called Dublin Improv Fest. We had the best shout out there, which was multi-story Jesus was our two words.
Oh right, so you hadn't asked for a religious leader and a municipal thing, and someone came up with multi-story Jesus.
Oh, how we get suggestions is we get two names from the audience, and maybe it was like Michael and Joanna or whatever. Like, so something starting with M, something starting with J. Someone just shouted out multi-story Jesus, and we're like, sure, let's do that.
So it was one person that gave you both parts?
Both of them, yeah.
Right, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, for that combination of words, multi-story Jesus. But,
combining... Oh no, I'm going to say something terrible. The Irish's love of Jesus and parking their cars.
You know what? We did do a car park scene, of course. I think we might have even done an Irish accent, which is always the case. Why does it happen that whenever you go to another country in their festival, you end up doing a scene with their accent? We went to Philadelphia, and I think beforehand we were like, let's make sure that can we not try and do an American accent here? And I think we did. I'm pretty sure we ended up doing American accents. Like, you just tell that moment when we look at each other like, oh, we're doing it. We're doing it.
And now we've started doing it. We've got to stick with doing it.
Exactly.
It's not just because you listen to the people that you're around with, and then you mirror them,
That's
and
it.
then suddenly, you're improv. You can't help it.
I just have this fear that people think that we're taking the piss out of them when we go to their country. Like, this is how you sound to us. But yeah, so that's fun. I do a duo with Lauren, and I also did some stuff with Pippa Evans.
Yeah.
We did the Amsterdam Improv Festival, which was super fun.
Did you do a Dutch accent in Amsterdam?
Oh, I think not Dutch, but I'm pretty sure we did something like German, like equally offensive because it was very European, and just I'm pretty sure we did.
You're both in Europe here. It's practically the same thing. I'll just do this accent.
Exactly. I know that we did I did an Estonia festival, Tallinn festival with Katie Shute.
Did you do Estonian accent?
No, we probably should have, because it would have been better to understand. I know that we did a Scottish scene with really thick Scottish accents. I know, because most of the people in the audience, English was their second language, of course.
Anyway.
And they're looking at us like, I'm like, they have no clue what we're saying, because we're making this very hard for ourselves. But they loved it. they were very generous, the audience. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun travelling and doing the improvs. It's fun.
So do you with accents? Does it just come naturally to you, or is it something that you've practiced?
Great question. I think sometimes I can get a bit in my head about accents, in that it's because Lauren's really good with accents too. So sometimes she'll jump into an accent, and it's usually the northern ones which I get a bit vague about. So I'm fine when I'm copying Lauren's accent. Like if she starts off, they'll be like, "Oh, great."
Oh, so you can tune into what she's doing, and then...
Yes. But if you were to say to me, "Can you give me a Lancashire accent or something now?"
Can you give me a Lancashire accent now? You see? You're highlighting the fact that you'd find it difficult.
Exactly.
Whereas if I just leapt into one, you could probably copy it.
Exactly. Do you know Lancashire? What is Lancashire? I just go generally northern.
Yeah, it's... no, I can do Brummy because I've got relations in Wolverhampton, so I can do that really easily. And when I go up there, I sort of slip into it, and I think that they think I'm taking the piss, but I'm not. I'm just, that's as far as north as I can go.
Very nice.
Yeah,
very nice. That's it. So I get in my head a bit about northern accents, but otherwise, Andrew Gentili gave me a good piece of advice, because he's excellent at impressions and accents, as I'm sure you know. In that he has a phrase which helps him get into it.
Ah, yeah.
And so even if he doesn't say that phrase out loud, he'll be kind of repeating it just to get the vowel sounds.
Yes. Because I've heard, I think it's Joe Samuels from the Maydays talk about that, and how he has a musical phrase. So if he's going to go into Mexican, he has a kind of, in a similar way. Then that puts him down the Mexican route, sort of thing.
That's it. Yeah, just so you've got that platform of starting off. And then once you're in it, it's fun, isn't it? Yeah. I like...
Well, it is fun. But it's sort of fun because it's terrible.
Yeah.
I did a show once, and I was, I really went for American, and it just was a voice.
It was a voice.
I mean, America's a huge place.
Oh, I know.
But even within there was no accent that sounded like what I was coming out with. But you just have to plough on.
I love how we do just group all of American accents into the same. We're like, American.
Pretty much the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes American teachers will come over and we'll do like a southern accent. And they'll be like, no one talks like that in Texas. Like, howdy. It's just a caricature of it. Yeah, I love getting into characters with accents, but sometimes it's nice just to change my face shape and see what that person talks like.
Wow.
Which sounds complicated, but it's just like, I'm just going to have my lips out here or something. See what happens. Oh, she tends to be someone like this. And that just comes from my lips rather than thinking, where in the world will I choose?
Yes.
And then sort of going geographically. Sometimes I just go from
that's really good, yeah.
weird faces.
Weird faces. No, I like the weird face idea.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you have a monthly night at the Miller. What's this called? What's it about?
Oh, yeah. So the playground, I am super, super pumped exists because, rewind back, 2 years, because I've been teaching for a little bit, 2 or 3 years, at Hoopla. And so sometimes I'll go along to nights at the Miller and I'll see my students in the audience, and sometimes there'll be a jam. Right, and so this one particular night, I went to the Miller, and I saw about 7 or 8 of my students in the audience, and then there was a jam. I think maybe it was C3 jam or something. And I was like, "Oh, great! They're going to get up and play." And one by one, interestingly, the guys in my class put themselves forward and got up on stage, and then the girls didn't.
Right.
I thought, this is what the? Why are they? These guys can all do a scene. Why are they not jumping up? And then, just really noticed that the girls were a bit reticent. And then the next time I saw them all in class, it's like, what happened? Why don't you get up and play? Because, it's a chance for everyone to. And the girls said, well, actually, we just wanted to see what it was like, and then, maybe next time we'll have a go. And the guys were like, well, we just want to have a go, which is fair enough. And so I thought, what's the case with girls just not putting themselves forward? Sometimes I think, and now this is my theory, and I don't want to make any generalizations or sweeping stereotypical statements, but women, I don't think, take as many risks and putting themselves forward when they're only a bit sure about things. Like, women will often wait till they're 100% certain how to do something, and then they'll be like, yeah, I can do that. Whereas I think on the whole, again, correct me if I'm wrong, from your male point of view, I think guys will be like, yeah, I'll give it a go. I mean, I'm only 50-50 about this, but I'll put myself forward. And so I was like, how can we make it so that the girls, like, what would it take for them to get up and start doing stuff? I think maybe sometimes they just need a nudge from someone, an invite or a push. So, I was thinking maybe it feels like it's a bit intimidating because there's guys there or whatever. Maybe there is something around gender. So I wonderfully had to speak to Steve Rowe, the king of all improv.
Or episode 1, as I like to call it. The Improv London
which
podcast.
is where it all begins. It always begins with Steve. Steve is awesome. And I said to Steve, you know, what can we do to get more women in jams? Because it seems like it's like 90% guys. He was like, if you want to run any nights or anything, it's completely up to you. So, the thing, I'm trying to remember the chronological order. Then I thought, well, let's run a night which isn't like ladies only, yay, because it kind of annoys me when people make a big deal of it. But let's just run a night where there's some really strong women doing some amazing stuff, and then also let's just invite some newer girls along to do their stuff. So there was a night, we did it just a one-off called the One Night Playground. I'm trying to remember who was in that night. It was like Pippa Evans and Lucy Trodden. I think Sully Hodgkiss. Yeah. Gosh, I can't remember the...
Best not to start unless you can finish.
It's good. Emily Murphy.
Hey, Emily. What episode? I can't remember which episode number she is. Sorry, Emily.
Oh, why can't you remember?
I don't know.
So we all did that night. Are you going to look it up?
I'm going to look it up. Now, you see, the thing was, because this is an audio medium, no one would have known. Look, there's even Emily's class that she's teaching on Wednesday, so I am supporting her.
Oh, there you go. Look it up.
I can remember Steve because he was number 1.
Always.
And then basically I didn't want to say it and get it wrong.
It's all right.
Maybe I should just commit it and then I could have dubbed it in afterwards.
There she is.
She's episode 12.
12. Lucky number 12.
That nearly. Oops, I've actually started that. That's getting a bit meta when I start playing my podcast while recording another episode of the podcast. So Emily, you've been on this episode as well.
There you go.
Does that make up?
Emily's great. I love Emily.
She's brilliant.
So that's how it began. One night went really well. We got a bunch of... we did the playground, and then Steve gave us a monthly night from then on. And obviously, Lauren and I took it on with breaking and entering, making it a night that we ran, so that we could get all of the best girls that we could think of, and then also start inviting new students along and just putting together an ensemble for the night. So I'm really, really, really proud of it now, because it's a night where there's really strong women acts, but that's not the point of the night, if that makes sense. Like, it just so happens that the teams are made up of girls, and then the jam at the end, there's more women that are playing now. They put themselves forward and stuff. So, long story short, that's how it all happened. It was kind of like, why aren't there more women doing improv? Rather than complaining, let's just make a night where they feel like they can get involved. And that's the playground, monthly.
I mean, that's really interesting, and maybe there are parallels with the stand-up scene, where there are fewer women, and they have to work twice as hard, sort of talking about things I don't really know about.
Well, there are definitely less women that do stand-up.
Yes.
And, I mean, this is the conversation that could go for hours, and there's always so many reasons given. One of the common ones is that it's quite an aggressive world, and that certain aggressive behaviours are expected. But then, there's so many talented female stand-ups that are coming through now, I think. So the vibe is changing.
Yes.
And that's all that needs to happen. Rather than women need to change, it's more that let's make the nights a bit different so that it doesn't feel weird when a woman has a different angle on the style of stand-up to do. But yeah, it's changing.
Yes.
Feel it.
Yes.
Feel it in the waters. Yeah. But, go on. I was just going to say, I've never noticed any sexism in London improv scene, thank goodness. This was more just addressing getting women to back themselves. Rather than guys weren't keeping women down. It's just more that girls weren't putting themselves forward. So.
And jams are terrifying things.
Yes.
And I mean, it's terrifying performing with people you know and trust. But I mean, I find it less frightening now, but only because I've just carried on doing it in the hope that eventually I would start to enjoy it.
Yes.
And I'm starting to enjoy it now. But for a long time, I thought I don't even know why I'm doing this because I think once I started doing it, it was all right.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know you. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what you like.
Yeah.
You could do anything.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
I'm
it
not
is
equipped to cope.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And I think you're right. Like, people are terrified. So sometimes they do their worst improv in jams.
Yes.
And especially when there's a stranger opposite them, then they'll kind of go back to, I don't trust you, therefore I'm going to do something which isn't necessarily what I do with my teammates. So I think jams are great for learning how to play with anyone.
Yes.
And literally like the worst people, because you will see the worst in jams, not because people are bad improvisers so much, but because they're terrified. Because either they're new to it or they're surrounded by strangers. Yeah.
I mean, I got through it by resigning myself to the fact that I was probably going to do the worst improv that had ever been done. Not the worst improv I had ever done, although the two were the same, but probably the worst improv ever. And you know what? Nobody seemed to care. It's like nobody chucked me out of the improv scene. You know.
And that's why I think jams are so great, because it doesn't matter. No one's paid to see you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just basically a workshop, but on stage.
Yeah. There are only other improvisers in the audience.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like most of the time.
Exactly. And I think you're right. That's absolutely the attitude. And I think more people should take that attitude of like, I just want to get some scene work in.
Yeah.
I don't expect this to be the best scene of my life.
Yes.
If it is, it's a lovely bonus.
Yes.
But let's just play. And I wish more experienced people would do jams purely to help newer people in terms of showing how, even if you're terrified, it's going to be fine, kind of thing. So yeah, I think there's a common belief that jams are only for new people. I think experienced people can learn so much from having to work a little bit harder, looking after newer people.
Yeah, and the newer people, they don't know the rules, and that's both a blessing and a curse. But, you know, the fact that they could do anything is kind of hugely exciting. And it's like, sometimes the things that you're not supposed to do, they do work, because they're just guidelines, really.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's, this is going to sound really wanky.
That's what we love. This is our favourite bit. This is the bit we like the most.
This is the wankiest thing, but I really believe, like, Michelle Obama says that once you, I'm going to hugely paraphrase her quote, but she says something like, once you've succeeded and gone through the door of success, it's your job to reach back and hold the door open and create opportunities for other people behind you.
Wow.
Like, don't let the door slam shut just because you've succeeded. And I feel like that's absolutely what the improv community often is, which is great. But we could always do more.
Yeah.
I think sometimes there can be a bit of an elitism of like, I've been improvising for 7 years, or I've been improvising for 10 years, I don't have to play with those people.
Right.
But I think it's your job to give them the experience, like the new people, the experience of what it's like to play with an incredible improviser, because you're holding the door open for them too.
Yeah.
Because chances are someone's held the door open for them to get through.
Yes.
And then as a community, we all get better.
Yes.
That's my wanky bit over.
No, that's
I really believe in that.
That's inspirational. No, I think that's genuinely lovely. So you mentioned you saw that you're travelling back in time now.
Yes.
Travelling back in your personal timeline.
Personal timeline.
And you said there was radio or teaching.
Yes.
Were your options.
Yep.
So how did you discover improv?
Accidentally. So this is all by accident in my life. My friend Amy Bunn, who did stand-up, said, hey, there's an improv show in Balham tonight. Do you want to come and watch it with me? Oh, flashback to when I'm 12 years old, by the way.
Further flashback.
Further flashback. In New Zealand, in small town New Zealand watching Whose Line Is It Anyway on TV, and I've always loved improv, always wanted to do it, but didn't really understand how I could. Flash forward to Amy saying, come to this improv show, and me going, I love Whose Line, I'll love it. So we turn up at Bedford in Balham, and we walk into the room, and I think it's Edgar. I can't remember if Steve was there, but it's a really small class.
I love Edgar.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I love Steve too, but I love Edgar.
Yeah, it was delightful. But they were all standing in a circle. Yeah. And me and Amy looked at each other and like, this doesn't look like a show. We're supposed to be watching a show. And they all stopped what they were doing and looked at us and were like, oh, sorry, is there an improv show here tonight? And Edgar was like, no, there's been a mix-up with the listings. It was supposed to be a workshop and the show's next week. He's like, but you're welcome to join if you want. I know. And so me and Amy were like, okay, sure. So we literally accidentally walked into an improv workshop, and it was the best 2.5 hours of our life.
Wow.
And I remember very clearly us walking outside of the Bedford, because Amy loved it too, looking at each other like when everyone else had gone, squealing and going, what just happened? We've just discovered this incredible thing. And we did it, and so and I've never looked back since. So it was it was fate. It was fate.
So would you have gone along had you known that it was a workshop?
I don't. That's what. Well, I tell the story to my newbies as well. Like on their very first day, I don't know if I would have had the courage to. Yeah. So I'm always in awe of anyone who signs up to a workshop and then goes for the first time ever, because I think it's quite terrifying.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think if you've, because I think there are lots of people that think about doing it, and then there's fewer people that actually sign up for it, and then there's proportionally fewer people that actually turn up for the first week. So even if you just get through the front door of your first class, you've
ahead. Done the harder stuff.
You get points for turning up. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
absolutely agree. I think that's the hardest thing is to go in and sit down in your first improv class, because everyone's so worried they have to be funny or clever, and that they're going to be showing up.
Yes.
So I don't know. I don't know if I ever would have signed up. Who knows? Who knows? But it was a wonderful coincidence that it happened. Because now look.
Yes, now look where you are.
Look at life. How funny it is. Yeah.
So we were talking before the podcast started about guilt.
we did. We did touch on guilt, didn't we?
This is because I think I feel guilty a lot of the time, possibly due to my Roman Catholic upbringing. I mean, apparently there's some sort of connection with guilt there. I don't know. No one's ever talked about it before. It's breaking new ground. You said.
What's that? Breaking new ground?
Breaking new ground, talking about Roman Catholic guilt.
Oh, yeah, God. Roman Catholic guilt. So we were talking about, because you were saying the difference between laziness and if you're genuinely tired.
Yeah, so what point does tiredness end?
Yeah.
And then laziness begin? Because I was asleep for 3 hours today before I came and did this interview. Just to get this on the record.
Exactly. And I said, well, maybe you needed the sleep, and that's where we don't know the difference. That is, I think, probably one of the greatest paradoxes of our time, Stuart. Where does laziness end?
It's a double thumbs up there from me, because I'm looking forward to what you're going to say about this.
I mean, okay, so here's the big thing for me. Because I work freelance, so I manage my own time. And that's always tricky, because I have to decide when I'm slacking or not. I work from home a lot. I do obviously teach, and I do corporate training and stuff as well. But my biggest problem definitely is like guilt on whether I should be resting or working, or and I think there's something when you work at night time, and then you go home, and then like the next morning for me at like 9 o'clock, I'm like, oh, I should be working. But actually, I didn't get a night last night, so I have this ongoing battle of how many hours in the day I should be working and not. I don't know where I'm going with this, but basically I'm always feeling guilty that I'm not working enough. That's my summary of guilt.
Well, that makes me feel slightly better, because I feel the same, and I don't even work at night time particularly.
There's always something to do though, right? Yeah. There's always, and even I think today more so than ever, with our constant like emails and now, and you can do anything at any time. There's no like leaving work at the office. So there's constantly that thing on your shoulder, which is I should reply to that email or whatever. But I constantly struggle with that balance of rest versus work.
And on a similar thing, my current thing I'm wrestling with, because I'm basically seeking therapy through the podcast.
Please.
Is the balance between doing stuff and not doing stuff, and knowing in the future how I'm going to feel and how much stuff I should organise. Because I don't know how I'm going to say I've got a weekend coming up, and so I don't know how I'm going to feel at that weekend. How much stuff should I organise? Because I have a problem between doing too much or not doing enough.
Oh, I see. So like when you're planning your diary, and dependent on mood, you don't know what your mood's going to be. Yeah. I mean, great questions. Great question.
I'm not really. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, here's the thing. Apparently, again, it's going to sound wanky. Apparently, you shouldn't wait for your mood to do something. You should do it, and then your mood will adapt to it. Because sometimes you feel like, oh, I'll only start writing. I don't know. Maybe if you're writing comedy or anything, I'll only start writing when I feel inspired. When it's actually the opposite. You start writing and then inspiration will come.
Right.
And so through action can change our mood in a good way, I think, often.
Yes, and I know that to be true because I don't think there's ever been a time when I haven't felt tired before I've done an improv show or an improv workshop.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah.
But I know that I've kind of resigned myself to that. And that, I'm never going to have this imaginary peak physical state that I think I have. I probably don't have it. That's probably this is as good as it gets.
You're just going to be tired for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so I might as well get on and do the thing I love, even though...
Yes. Yeah, and there's things like, people who work full-time go, well, I'm too exhausted to do my real dream, my real passion because I'm working. It's like, bullshit. If you really love what you're doing, then make time for it. And I absolutely agree with you when it comes to like finding energy for improv. There's been times when I've finished a day, like a few days on the trot of training in the daytime and then teaching at night, and I'm walking along the pavement. Sometimes when you walk on the footpath and everyone's passing you,
yeah,
but you're the slowest person. When I've gone into a class feeling that slow and that tired, and then left 2.5 hours later, being like the quickest person on the sidewalk because I'm full of energy. And I mean, I go home and I sleep very well because I'm exhausted. But yeah, I think that's the key. It's just like just get there, do it, and then you'll find energy.
Yeah, and I think that's why warm-ups are so important. I find them really integral to it because it's we're getting out of the world we were in before, and now we're in this new space. We've been present with these new people, so
Yeah, absolutely. And we can go home and watch TV. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're doing that every night, I always think, is that genuinely what I want my life to be outside of work? And if it is, fine. But if you're making an active choice, if you want to make an active choice to do something else, then you absolutely can, I think. Yeah.
That's cool. That was a good answer. That was helpful. Thank you.
Anytime.
I'm going to solve all my problems through asking people in the improv scene on a podcast.
Yeah. So in short, plan everything for your weekend and then just do it.
Right, nice.
Well, there's that saying, bite off more than you can chew and then chew like mad.
Yes.
I love that one.
I heard that one before. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then collapse and die. Yeah.
Hooray. Right, brilliant. Okay, so time for the big finale.
Oh, here we
the
go.
Big finale.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Okay.
Lots of pressure. No pressure. We love improv. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yay. That's not the question.
Oh, okay.
That's just it.
Sure.
What would you like to see more of, or something of, in the London improv scene? What if... I was going to say, if you were in charge of improv, obviously you are.
In charge of it. I'm the CEO of improv, yeah.
Let's go for Queen, but, of London, where would you take the improv scene in London next? What do we need?
Yeah. Well, I would love to see the equivalents that there are in places like Austin or Chicago or New York, where there are multiple big successful schools and theatres for improv. I love the idea that you can learn different styles at different theatres, and you can go and see that style at the theatre, and you can learn that style, and that everyone is successful. I would love more in improv in London for there to be the collaboration where people are just, I don't know if it sounds a bit like utopia, but people are trying to promote all improv and not just their brand.
Yes.
And I know it comes down to money and people are trying to fill out classes, but there's 7 million, 8 million people in this godforsaken town.
Yes.
And I think if we worked together more, we could just get more people doing improv, knowing, like, don't stress that they're not doing
Your particular
your
tiny bit of the world of
Yes.
improv. Yeah.
Because we all know that a good improviser can do a Harold, or can do premise-based, or can do sort of physical clown-based, or whatever your school specialises in. So knowing that if you just, it sounds like a cult, like recruiting people, just sell improv rather than trying to be better than the other school, just promote improv.
Yes. Make improv better than other
Yeah.
art forms.
Yeah, and then people will come to London for improv and the vibrant improv scene rather than just you and your one show or you and your one school. A rising tide lifts all boats. I am the queen of cliches in this podcast. Who did I hear that from? I think first hearing it from Colleen Doyle of Dummy. If you honestly believe in that, then it does work. But you have to, cooperate, and that comes from a place of trust in improv and not fear. I think sometimes people work on this fear base of like, well, I've got to be the better school, otherwise I'll lose all my students. That's ridiculous. We can all have loads of students. There's so many people in London. So just getting rid of the fear, I think, and rivalry between schools and just everyone promoting together. That's what I'd like to see.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
I think that's our big finish. Thank you very much.
Pow! Just on a fist bump.
Maria Peters, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! Have you got any good stories about being sacked from...
Bonus. I did get sacked, yes.
What's your favourite getting sacked story?
My favourite getting sacked story. I got fired from being a PA because I was awful at it. At one point, it was a gold mining company. At one point, the guy that I was being a PA to, he was like, "Can you not be so loud on the phone when you answer the phone?" At that point, I was like, I don't think being a PA in an office is the correct job for me. I'm so shit at it. But yeah, that's my getting fired story. So they asked if I. They said they didn't need me at work. I mean, they didn't say that I was fired. They're just like, "Oh, I don't think we're going to need you anymore." Okay then, I won't see you next week then. Bye.
But it helped you on the journey to the person you are today.
That's
so
it.
in a way,
We've got to deal with that rejection, right?
yes.
Damn it, my gold mining career is over.
Thank you very much indeed. That's brilliant.
Thanks.
I made this.
That's improv!